Hi, welcome to the Times of Israel's daily briefing. It is Thursday, February 6th, and I'm Jessica Steinberg. I'm speaking today with political correspondent Sam Sokol and reporter Diana Bletter. Good morning to you both.
Morning.
Hello, Jessica.
Hello to you both. It is day 489 of the war. 2 soldiers were killed and 8 wounded as a crane collapsed on troops in Gaza due to the strong winds in the region right now. As U.S. President Donald Trump's statements regarding Gaza continue to make waves, his statements regarding the temporary transplanting of Gazans during the expectedly prolonged reconstruction period, world leaders reacted quickly, as did local politicians. We'll talk about their comments and their thoughts, and we'll also take a look at life up north right now as some of the thousands, tens of thousands of evacuees return, and others have actually never left their homes. So stay with us. We'll be back in a moment. Okay, Sam. So first, yesterday I was doing the podcast with Jacob, and of course we went over all of President Trump's many comments regarding his ideas about Gaza and Palestinians in Gaza. And that was before Israeli politicians had presumably woken up and started to make their own comments and statements about all of this. So take us through what you were hearing yesterday, what people were saying. For some politicians on Israel's right, on the coalition's right, of course, this is music to their ears, this idea. But take us through what you think really resonated as you were reporting on this yesterday.
Well, just to recap very briefly what President Trump said with Prime Minister Netanyahu at the White House was to reiterate his proposal, which has been roundly rejected by Arab nations, to permanently relocate the Palestinians living in the Gaza Strip, which has been devastated over the course of the war. He called it a giant demolition site and basically said you need another location where people can move to. He subsequently said that he wanted the United States to take over and, quote, own the Gaza Strip. Netanyahu appeared to be surprised by the full extent of President Trump's proposal. And President Trump's proposal met with immediate jubilation on the Israeli hard right. You had Itamar Ben Gvir, the leader of the ultranationalist and Kahanist Otzma Yehudit party, which recently left the government in protest of the ceasefire deal with Hamas, announced that the chances of his rejoining the government have gone up significantly if Netanyahu follows through and actually implements Trump's ideas. He told Galei Yisrael Radio that while he hasn't sewn a new ministerial suit yet, there's no doubt that the chances of Otzma Yehudit returning to the government have increased. And this was also welcomed by Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich. Smotrich and Ben Gvir have both previously and repeatedly and vociferously advocated for what they call voluntary migration from the Gaza Strip. Now, this has come under a lot of criticism because there's sort of 2 issues that sometimes get conflated. You have people on the political right and center who advocate for allowing Palestinians who want to leave to be allowed to leave. There's Arab countries who basically say we won't take in refugees because the Palestinians should stay where they are. And you have the people on the far right who want to do what is essentially ethnic cleansing or population transfer, which is to say that they want to forcibly remove people who do not want to leave. And what many people believe Smotrich and Ben Gvir to be advocating from the tone and choice of rhetoric that they use is actual forced migration. Smotrich himself has called on Israel to occupy Gaza and to, quote unquote, encourage half of the Strip's Palestinians to emigrate within 2 years, and has told reporters that he was working on an operational plan to turn this into actionable policy. So those on the right basically have acted as if they see Trump's idea as carte blanche to push their own view, which is less allowing refugees who want to leave, than to push people out en masse.
But then you also had someone like Benny Gantz, chairman of the opposition National Unity Party, who also put out a statement, kind of a little bit more parv, we might say, where he said very creative thinking on the part of President Trump. So he wasn't a proponent of what Smotrich and Ben Gvir were saying, but he also was saying, I'm not against this idea.
Well, yes, the Israeli political center was very cautious, we can say, in how they responded. In a statement, Gantz said that the idea of building a safe and prosperous area for the residents of Gaza outside the Strip, and this is a key part, he said, allowing those who wish to do so to move is admirable and will stand the test of reality. Now, that's very different from what people like Ben Gvir and Smotrich are saying. He's basically saying if Trump can get regional countries to accept people who want to leave and who would be allowed, presumably, to go back if they want to, though he didn't really specify, that's a very different thing from forced population transfer. We had opposition leader Yair Lapid tell Army Radio that he intends to present a supplementary plan to the Americans at the end of the month when he goes to Washington. And he said that it's the role of the Israeli leadership to present a plan.
I also thought, by the way, Sam, I think he made some of his comments, Yair Lapid, while doing a tour of kibbutz Nir Oz, one of the devastated kibbutzim in the south, which, of course, the residents of kibbutz Nir Oz who still have at least 24, if not more, hostages still in Gaza and complete devastation of their kibbutz, they keep on saying that Prime Minister Netanyahu has actually never even been to the kibbutz in the last 15 months. So just to point out that Lapid was doing it while on, I don't know if it's his first or second or third time, but while at Nir Oz.
Yeah. And I think there was something very interesting about Lapid's reaction, which is, on the one hand, he said, which is very noncommittal, very a way of avoiding weighing in and fighting with Trump, we'll have to study the details to understand what his plan is. And then he went on to say that Trump deserved a Nobel Prize for the Abraham Accords. Look, what happened, though, since that point is that the Trump White House essentially backed down on a large chunk of what it had been saying. First, they said that they don't intend to pay for the reconstruction of Gaza and have made no commitment to sending U.S. troops there. And then they said that they intend only to remove Gazans temporarily. So this is very much, saying one thing the next day and then trying to walk it back to spin it right afterwards. For his part, Prime Minister Netanyahu, speaking with Fox News, called it a good idea. He also said, I don't think they're talking about sending U.S. troops to complete the job of destroying Hamas, but the actual idea, according to Netanyahu, was to allow Gazans who want to leave. So he was seeming to fall very much on the side of someone like Gantz rather than on the side of someone like Ben Gvir, who wants to ethnically cleanse the Gaza Strip. Now, so far we've discussed the reactions that have been very enthusiastic or sort of equivocal, but that's not the only type of reaction we saw. Now, Mansour Abbas, the head of the Islamist Ram Party, was very, very harshly critical of Trump. He said that the initiative for the transfer of Gaza residents is not creative thinking and not a political agenda. It is the old Kahanist thinking that normalizes the unacceptable. He said very clearly it's impossible to carry out a transfer without committing war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide. And we also saw this from Ofer Kassif, who's the only Jewish member of the Arab-majority Hadash Tal party, who actually wrote in an English-language post on Twitter that even if we have to lie down under the wheels of trucks, even if we have to blow up the bridges, there will be no mass deportation by force because we will not allow it to happen. Leaving aside the fact that, there's no bridges in and out of the Gaza Strip. But, this has been a very, very divisive proposal. I think, again, the center likes the idea of saying anyone who wants to go and find somewhere else, they should be allowed to, but nobody should be forced from their homes. This is not something that I think would be politically acceptable to the international community or to many Israelis. At the same time, Defense Minister Yisrael Katz has actually ordered the IDF to prepare a plan to enable Gazans to leave the Strip voluntarily, he announced. And he was quoted as welcoming Trump's, quote, courageous plan, which would enable a wide swath of the population in Gaza to leave to various places around the world. Now, again, even if we're talking about truly voluntary migration, this doesn't look like it's a practical policy and doesn't look like it's something that's going to happen. Egypt and Jordan see large influx of Palestinians as a strategic threat to the stability of their governments. And we've had multiple Arab governments say that this is unacceptable. So I think essentially what's happening now is, what this is going to do politically is it sort of moves the Overton window in Israeli politics. While the far right was previously saying, Netanyahu, don't accept a permanent ceasefire, don't finish the war, we need to go back in and finish military action, now their demands are likely going to shift to not only do you need to finish military action, but we need to remove large parts of the population. And I think that could be potentially very, very worrying, to say the least.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break. When we're back, Diana's going to talk to us about what is happening in the North, people who stayed over the last 15 months, people who left and are going back home or attempting to. So stay with us. Okay, so Diana, you've, as usual, been making tracks from your home to homes and communities farther in the north. Let's first talk about Ghajar, the Alawite village that literally overlooks Lebanon. I was there a couple of years ago myself, a very peaceful, lovely town that thinks of itself as part of Israel. Many people, really, I think probably all of them, have relatives in Syria. The town itself overlooks Lebanon, so it's a very complicated geopolitical situation, in a sense, just in this one little village alone. And it's very small with a lovely boardwalk that really overlooks the green hills of Lebanon. So, but Diana, why don't you tell us about it? Tell us who you met there and what you're hearing from people there.
Thank you, Jessica. Well, as you said, Ghajar residents, there are about 3,000 people who live there. They are Alawites who were members of the same religion as the former Syrian president al-Assad, who was overthrown. And even though the new Syrian head says he believes in religious coexistence and tolerance, last week members of his government executed 35 Alawites who were former Assad supporters. So it's a very tense time there, and they are very concerned about their relative safety and also the safety of other minorities in Syria.
Are they in contact? I'm not remembering what the nature of the communication is with their relatives. Is it phone? Is it WhatsApp? Is it phone calls, video, email? What is it?
Through WhatsApp, but they said that they know from what their relatives aren't saying that it's very dangerous there.
Right. So tell us a little bit about also just what life is looking like right now. In other words, what was their existence like for the last 15 months before the ceasefire began?
They were under rocket fire. They are right on the border, very exposed, and they received a lot of Hezbollah rockets in the area. But what's amazing, getting back to what we were talking about, religious tolerance, the Alawites themselves are very religiously tolerant people. In the park in the center of the village, which is really lovely, they have a statue of Alawite swords, an open book of the Quran, a statue of Mary from Christianity, and a menorah. And they said they are not fundamentalists. They certainly believe in religious tolerance. And that was nice to see. And the houses are painted beautiful pastel colors, and it's very clean and well kept there.
Right. I remember how clean it is. Do they have sealed rooms in terms of where do they go? Where were they going during all the rocket attacks? Where were they taking shelter?
In sealed rooms, and they are very strongly in favor of living in Israel and staying within Israel. They said that when the village expanded north, it expanded on lands that belonged to the residents, and it was always a part of Syria, and they have no connection with Lebanon. And they feel that the UN forcibly tried to divide the village, but they certainly want to stay in Israel. They all have Israeli citizenship.
And I also remember, correct me if I'm wrong, that there was soldiers who were guarding, Israeli soldiers were guarding the entrance to the village. Is that still the case before you drive into the village?
Yes, that's still the case. I tried to get into the village 2 times before, and on January 23rd, it was the first time that it was open to outsiders. And I was one of the first people to come in, and the restaurants are really trying to bring back tourism. It's still very tenuous there, and the ceasefire between Hezbollah and Israel is due to expire on February 18th, and nobody knows what will happen. So people, I think, are still staying away, unfortunately.
Right. I know that they had made a big push a few years ago to really expand tourism to the town. So obviously, I imagine that's been decimated over the last year.
Yes, and they also, even though tourists can come, they have to leave at 8 in the evening. So there are no bed and breakfast there yet, but there are restaurants. And
got it. So hopefully one day soon. And you were also in Mattat and Hurfeish, which are 2 very different kinds of villages in the north. Mattat is this, as I would like to say, a candles and sandals kind of place where different people do different kinds of things. A famous chef lives there part of the time, Erez Komarovsky. People, grow their own vegetables and raise their own chickens and that kind of thing. But of course, I imagine there's a lot of stories that you're telling from there about people who either left and just came back or never left. So first tell us about Mattat and who you met there. And I want to say that Diana has added short videos to these pieces, which is really nice to have to get a sense of the place. So tell us about Mattat.
Mattat is 600 meters, which is less than a quarter mile from the border with Lebanon. And it's a beautiful area, as you said, but it was under Hezbollah rocket attacks. And the community, it was among the 32 communities, 60,000 residents from northern Israel who were evacuated during the war. So they are starting to move back. They are a resilient community, as you said, and they are very, some of them are still scared to come back. Some are waiting until the end of the school year because they're in other places. They want their kids to finish. And some are still hesitant that Hezbollah, which still threatens to do a Hamas-style attack in northern Israel, that they will succeed and do that.
Right. And also, as you interviewed a couple of different people there, one who her child goes to what we call a Yair school, a forest school, where most of the classes, everything takes place outside. I know that other schools like that in the north and even in the center have had their kids indoors for the year because they want access to sealed rooms. And I'm just curious to people there, because a lot of them construct their own homes. Do people have sealed rooms there? Do they have a place to go in case of attack?
They do. And in fact, they just received a donated bomb shelter from the First Korean Baptist Church from America. So they do, and they're aware of the dangers.
Yeah, that's pretty fascinating. And then you were also finally in Hurfeish, which is not a Jewish village, and where people seem to have remained for the last year plus.
Yes, that's correct. The Druze village of Hurfeish, or town, wasn't evacuated because it was a little bit farther from the border. It seems like it's a matter of inches. Yes, a matter of inches. So they endured the war, and they had a real drop in tourism. Obviously, nobody was there. Now they are just starting to get back into the swing of tourism. There were a couple of tourists who were visiting when I was there, and they said that the war took a toll not only physically but also emotionally. And the Druze serve in the Israeli army. 2 soldiers from Hurfeish were killed in the war. And they said that they're very, also like the Alawites in Ghajar, they're very concerned about the Druze in Syria and Lebanon, and really need to feel like Israel is behind them and protecting them.
Right. And these are also such small villages, all three of the places that you've described, where if anyone is killed, everyone feels it immediately. These are very familiar faces, and families, of course, that live in these villages. Everyone knows everyone else. So anything that happens is felt by everyone. As you drive around to these villages and towns and give us a sense of what's happening there, is there more traffic on the highways? Is there more traffic in the villages? Is there a sense that people are starting to come back, or really it's just still very quiet?
I live in the Western Galilee, and according to regional council officials, 20% of the people have moved back. That's only 20%. And they're supposed to finish their government subsidies and move back by March 1st. The ceasefire, who knows what will happen February 18th. So it's still very up in the air what's going to be here. The roads are still very empty. And I felt in Ghajar that people were just so excited to see visitors. I walked around with a local, and people invited me in to have tea. They didn't want me to leave. I think they were so touched.
Yeah, and just nice to see a face that you haven't seen for the last 15 months. I get it. I definitely get it. Well, thanks for that. Sort of giving us a sense and a picture of what's happening there. Helps all of us imagine it. And, let's hope that they have some busy Fridays in the north, at least until we figure out what's happening with the ceasefire. So thank you, Diana, and thank you, Sam, for being with me on today's Daily Briefing. It's been good to see your faces.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure.
And thanks to all of you for listening to the Times Visuals Daily Briefing. We'll be back again tomorrow with another installment. This episode is produced by the Podwaves. Any comments you have, you can always email us, podcasts@timesofvisual.com. And in the meantime, have yourselves a good day and stay safe. Speak to you again tomorrow.